Asral is the Mongolian for care. Panchayamuthu Rinpoche chose this when we first went to Mongolia because this is what he wanted to do, was to bring some care to the Mongolian people. Well, he went there in 1995 originally at the request of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in order to help with the Buddhist monasteries which had all been destroyed during the communist period and to help with their re-establishment. What he found when he had been there for 12 months was that there was in fact a tremendous amount of poverty. And he really felt that he had to somehow address the poverty that he was now seeing. And it was with the collapse of communism in the 1990s, 91, that Mongolia began to suffer. They'd been very reliant on Russia and Russian aid for a long, long time, 70 years in fact. I mean, traditionally, Mongolian had been a very strong nomadic country, but under communism, people were settled, they were given work to do, and they all lived either in these settlements. There were communes, of course, and even the herders were part of the communes. That collapsed, and a lot of the work that existed in the settlements disappeared completely.
Look how they tie them all together, it's amazing.
And in intervening years and during that period as well, you had some very severe winters, very, very bad winters, and millions of animals were lost during these severe winters. So there were only really one main place for these people to go to, and that was Ulaanbaatar. And so they came into Ulaanbaatar, hoping to find work, to a place where there wasn't work. And they settled then into areas which are now shanty towns around the perimeter of the city, and that every year now gets larger and larger.
I went there for 3 weeks. We went up into a hill and got a view down onto the city, and that was the shocking bit for me, was the scale. Vast scale. It's sort of like, it's like a city maybe the size of Cork, something like that. And then around that city you see this shanty town just going all the way around, 360 degrees, up into the hills, down into the valleys beyond, and back up onto the hills again. A couple of hours after getting off the plane, went into various homes and into the gears, you know, and absolutely, I was kind of quite shocked. You know, there was the man who has the 2 children and the leaking roof, whose wife had just walked out one day, obviously couldn't cope with what was going on. There was the woman in the bed who, you know, was suffering with problems with diarrhoea and was like in appalling conditions.
What people do suffer from because of the cold are kidney problems, lung, it gets onto the lungs as well. A lot of people now have TB. They will be living in a wooden house, and a lot of these wooden houses would have been there during the communist period, and they're now getting very, very old. So you end up with wooden structures that are got broken windows or no windows at all, roofs that are now leaking water. everybody has what we would call a pit toilet. Nobody has running water. Water would be brought in a truck, and then it's put into huge containers. All the water has to be carried. In the summer, the heat can get up to +40. In the winter, extreme cold, where it can drop to -40. I've never been there in the winter. If you don't have money, people actually burn bits of cardboard, they burn old clothes, they'll burn anything to try and keep the inside of that gear warm. It's virtually impossible to keep any temperature there during the winter. Yeah, just totally extreme cold.
If you have a family living in a gear, and you have a wife who's out trying to find work, or a husband who's out to try and find work, you have children who are alone and vulnerable, you have kind of all sorts of kind of problems that can arise in that situation. In Gatchard, there was a family of 3 children. There was no parents about whatsoever. They were being minded by some distant relative. Young children, one of them very severely disabled, blind, in a wheelchair. And their mother had walked out one day and never come back. Obviously just could not cope anymore, trying to feed them.
Like this give to orphanage.
He wants him to go to the orphanage?
Yeah.
But he could go to maybe the 5-day kindergarten.
We were able to help that family. We were able to in many different ways, and the 2 children were, we were able to get school, which meant that they got fed and got hostel accommodation, so on and so forth. But the child who was disabled and blind and who had a mental disability, there was nowhere for him in Mongolia. Now I know there's great stories about poverty and so on, but that particularly for me indicated something about what was missing, or what's lacking, what's wrong.